Hi guys! Today we're going to look at a strange little handheld that seems to be called the Coleco Sonic. For any retro gamer worth his salt, that title is a little bit confusing. Let's start with a very brief history of the first name you see on the handheld itself, Coleco. Coleco is an abbreviation of the company's original name, Connecticut Leather Company. You can't say Coleco never diversified. I mean, come on guys, an above ground pool made out of leather? How many cows had to give their lives for that mad dream to become a reality? They didn't have anything to do with video games until the late 70s. They started with Pong clones before making their own console, the ColecoVision. This is the infamous console that had an expansion which allowed you to play Atari games. They even made a standalone copy of the Atari called the Coleco Gemini. But despite their attempts to capture the market, or someone else's market, they were never able to surpass the Atari's popularity. They gave up on video games after the console market crashed, but they struck gold with the Cabbage Patch Kids. After that fad wore off, they went into bankruptcy and kept quiet until 2005, when they were revitalized by a company named River West Brands. They released a few plug-and plays and the Coleco Sonic. How they managed to bring Sega games to a device branded Coleco is beyond my understanding. It's kinda weird that the name Sega doesn't appear anywhere on the device. There has to be a motive behind this omission, because it has 20 games and just 2 are Sonic games, but all are first-party Sega games. The layout is so simple it could make a Game Boy blush. You get buttons for volume, start, reset, A and B, a D-pad, a power switch, and that's it. But that's all you need, because the games included are from the Sega Master System and Game Gear. In case you don't know, those are both the same thing. The Game Gear is just a portable version of the Master System, and in fact, the Master Gear converter is just a pass-through to play Sega Master System cartridges. They even still have the 2-player modes, even though there's no second controller input. I wouldn't blame anyone for assuming that this console came out way before the mid-2000s. The casing is thick ABS plastic, which makes it look heavier than it really is. It actually weighs less than your smartphone. I wouldn't hesitate to toss this in a bag and not worry about breaking it. It's very impressive. The D-pad is okay, but it does bottom out, and that can make it hard to change direction if you press it down too much during gameplay. The power switch is unusually small considering the size of the rest of the handheld, but at least that means it won't get powered on by mistake. It has a headphone jack and an AV out port. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the AV out to work. I purchased this as just a bare unit, so I don't know if I'm not using the right cables, or if it's just busted. It has a power input jack, but you'll never need it. It takes 3 AAA batteries, and I'd estimate they'll last somewhere between 8 and 10 hours. That's really good news, considering that the Game Gear used 6 AA's and had a lifespan only slightly better than a D-list celebrity stint in rehab. I kinda see this as a Game Gear trying to pull off a Game Boy Micro, if that makes any sense. Since the games are all first-party Sega titles, they're really well designed, like Alex Kidd in Miracle World. I grew up with this game, and it's definitely a favorite of mine. You can even catch a glimpse of it in the intro bumper to my 99-cent Gems series. I wouldn't have believed you if you told me back then that I would be playing this on a handheld system. It's pretty rare that you have a childhood dream come true. Also, because most of them are Master System games, they're very obscure. It's really exposed me to some games I never knew existed. Sega games from this era are some of the strangest you'll ever see, but that's a good thing. I guess they were trying to compete with what Nintendo had to offer, so they had to be different and experiment with new ideas. How about a game like Ninja Gaiden, if it were played from the over-the-top view? Or a shoot-'em-up where your ship can shoot in any direction you like? There are a few games that are just filler, like Snail Maze, Columns, Super Columns, Altered Beast, and Astro Warrior, but the rest are pretty interesting. I actually like it that I don't have a manual for any of them, because then I'm going in blind and I have to figure things out as I go along. When I saw Quatrid on the same page as Columns, I thought it would be another puzzle game, but it's not. It's a really cool platformer with a sci-fi theme. Not all of them are good though. Kung Fu Kid is too simple, Bomber Raid is hard to play on such a small screen, and Assault City is an odd choice to include here because it should have been a light gun game. But there is one game that I swear, its inclusion had to be an inside joke from the guys at Sega. They included Alex Kidd in High Tech World. As I told you, Alex Kidd in Miracle World is one of the best 2D platformers, but the sequels and spin-offs are some of the most forgettable games ever made. Just to give you an idea here, they made Alex Kidd in Shinobi World and Alex Kidd BMX Trial. I wish that was a joke, but it isn't. Alex Kidd in High Tech World is a very strange game. It's almost like a point-and-click adventure, and as far as I could tell, there's no action. It's definitely a bad game, the biggest reasons being that it's very tedious and it's filled with cheap deaths. some of which are so awkward that they had to be a joke. It's interesting only because there's nothing else like it, and even when you consider the other games I mentioned in the Alex Kidd series, you could still make a pretty good argument that this is the strangest one. Sega has a habit of abandoning some of its most beloved IPs, but they dropped the ball so badly with the Alex Kidd franchise that no one missed him when he was gone. So take note of this, Sega fanboys. When Sega suddenly stopped making follow-ups to your favorite franchise, it might just be that they were quitting while they were still ahead. Here's something to keep a Shenmue fan up at night. This game has quite a few similarities to the Shenmue games. You search through a house and talk to people in order to get items and clues, you go to an arcade, and you can even use a phone. So what I'm saying is this: be thankful for what you have, because Shenmue 3 could have easily have been Shenmue in high-tech world. Even though it's a terrible game, I can't deny it's a nice addition here only because you can easily get lost in it if you find yourself stuck somewhere with some time to kill. And that's one of the best selling points for any handheld if you ask me. But the biggest thing that sold me is this game, Fantasy Zone. Just like you saw Alex Kidd appear in that intro bumper, you can tell I love me some Fantasy Zone. Fantasy Zone is a shoot 'em up, but it's called a cute 'em up for obvious reasons. And if its plotline can't put a smirk on your face, then I'm pretty sure your day job involves making life very difficult for a child named Tiny Tim. The story goes that aliens stole all of our money, and your character, whose name is Opa Opa, has to fight them and get our money back. That's why the enemy ships drop money when you destroy them. The cute 'em up genre started as a parody of shoot 'em ups, and Fantasy Zone is credited with creating this subgenre. But just because it's cute, that doesn't mean it's easy. Make no mistake, this is one of the toughest shoot 'em ups out there. The game is unforgiving but addictive, and those traits were probably bred into it since it began its life as a quarter-munching arcade title. Along with the superb gameplay, the soundtrack is a reason in itself to play this game. It was made by the master composer Hiroshi Kawaguchi. It's inspired by Latin American music, and for some reason it just works here. Because Fantasy Zone was released on so many systems, one of my favorite things to do is compare the music from each port, because each system has its own sound limitations. The version you see here is the one that appeared on the Master System. The music is a step down from the arcade version, but still pretty faithful to it. The gameplay is the same, but while all the other ports are just remakes of the arcade, this one has some unique bosses that only appeared on the Master System version, so I'm really thankful to see this one included here. Even though I love Fantasy Zone, I stay away from the sequels and spin-offs, because like we saw with Alex Kidd, Sega was not very good at making follow-ups to their popular games, and they eventually abandoned them. That's sad because Opa Opa was Sega's first mascot, and Alex Kidd was their mascot before Sonic finally appeared. So when I saw Fantasy Zone The Maze, I avoided it. But now I could tell you that was a big mistake. This spin-off is definitely worth checking out. Let me explain the gameplay in the simplest terms. This is Pac-Man with weapons. And instead of pellets, you collect coins that you use to purchase your weapons, just like the original Fantasy Zone. This is one of the most innovative spin-offs that still stays true to its original concept. I can't believe it took me so long to discover it, but it's really growing on me. The branding on it alone is a reason to add it to your collection, but when you look beyond that, you'll find out that it's got a great selection of games and a rugged little package. I think I bought mine for about $20 shipped, which seems to be the going rate at the moment for a bare unit. So I do recommend picking up one of these. Well, that's all I have for today, so I'll see you guys next time.